Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the EU Spring Regionals here in Katowice. I am Tetra and I'm joined by the legend that is Dreadnought, and we're here for some great games.
Yeah, no, I actually think this is going to be a really good setup between these two teams. I think the draft coming out on the side of Dignitas is going to be really interesting to see how they play out the early game. I think it's actually really crucial to the success of their kind of composition, but I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting. And we were having a little look at the mYi game. We caught a little bit of the end of that, and you had some very interesting notes I saw on that.
Yeah, so mYi had really straightforward compositions on how they needed to play it through all three games. They also had a really heavy draft pattern that was shown through all the games. It's something that I don't feel like I should point out directly while it is early in the series, but we'll see if it comes into play like the farther we go in, right? If they get to game 2, game 3, whether or not they're going to kind of fall into that pattern and whether or not Dignitas is going to be able to abuse that.
Yeah, and speaking of Dignitas, we're seeing them with a very, very different build than we did in the previous series that they played, bringing in that Abathur Sonya Tyrael style with that Li Ming as that backline damage. Very different to what we've seen them play so far.
I mean, I think it's very different than almost every composition we've seen so far. And the fact that it's going to be on Battlefield of Eternity, as you saw, Kalaris was actually commenting earlier about the Falstad pick with the Abathur and whether or not it's going to be a problem. I think that's something that we're going to be looking at when it comes to this game, but then also just kind of when the early game is played and how well the sustained game that's going to be like kind of played around, especially when it comes to the build on the side of Bakery on Dignitas. I think if he decides to go with his totem build, which is going to get him the sustain with the healing ward versus possibly a tidal waves option, which I think that poke game is something he might need to consider as the game goes on.
Yeah, but we do have to consider that as opposed to some of the other games, there is a lot more poke on the side of mYi this time.
Yes.
They do have the Greymane, the Falstad, who could, in theory, take out that healing ward or healing totem a little bit earlier in the fights as opposed to some of the previous fights that we did have. Yeah,
no, that's exactly like what I think we need to be looking for. And whether or not he decides to kind of pull away from that build and look towards, again, that tidal wave-centric build to be able to delay as long as he possibly can, keep his team surviving while Abathur is split-soaking the entire time, and then keeping track of Falstad to make sure he doesn't fly out and getting picks. But we're going into game number 1 here.
Yeah, and we can see the teams here. We have Team Dignitas with Bakery on the Rhaegar, JBL playing Sonya, Maina on Li Ming, Snitch on the Abathur, Wooby is playing Tyrael, whereas Mine Sanity, we have Nurok on Greymane, Darkmock on that Thrall he likes so much, Splendor on the Karazim, Hasuobs on Falstad, and Blumby is playing the Muradin.
And right out the gates, I don't think these teams are going to be doing anything too interesting when it comes to laning matchups. A 1-4 is really common when you are playing on Battlefield of Eternity. Abathur is going to change that up a little bit here, but what I'm more interested in is, number 1, the rotations, the early rotations onto the Immortals when they do spawn. I think it's crucial that Dignitas makes that rotation very aggressively to abuse their Abathur as much as they can. And then past that point, I think they need to realize that they should not be defending and trading.
Yeah, the faster they can force Falstad out of lane, the better it's going to be for them. Because Falstad, whole thing about him on this map is he's incredibly effective at soaking the XP and also incredibly effective at finding Abathur. But if you keep him busy, like you said, with a really aggressive push that Dignitas could run here, it's going to make it a little bit harder. Yeah,
and I think Dignitas's composition kind of spikes when you hit that like 13, 16 kind of era where Abathur can start to not only abuse the soak advantage, but then start sieging up himself, making each Immortal beyond that point be more and more effective. So what I would really like to see is make sure that they don't go in solo defense. I fear that if they go in a solo defense situation, Falstad will be able to abuse his mobility to get a kill on the Abathur, but not only that, I fear that it will present a situation to where Dignitas will fall so far behind that Abathur pick doesn't really matter.
Yep, there is a very high potential of that, but for now, we do have the teams heading into the lane. Like you said, it is the 1-4 coming in from mYi. Abathur changing it up a bit, but we do just see Rhaegar down in the bottom lane for Dignitas. He will be there, so Bakery playing very safe, does not want to get picked this early in the game.
Yeah, and you see right out the gates, Bakery did end up going with his totem at level 1, so it is showing heavy signs of him fitting with that build. So how long the healing totem is going to be able to survive is going to be crucial to their success here in the early game.
Yep, very much so. We see Li Ming going with the Astral Presence as opposed to the Power Hungry that we see on some maps. This map, a lot harder to pick up globes, so the Astral Presence really helpful in that scenario where you can just soak up the mana. And Blumby going the long way around, just making sure he doesn't get caught by Li Ming or anyone else who might be hiding in those bushes.
Yeah, and I don't think either of these teams are willing to take any crazy risk. You do see we end up having 2 on the bottom lane again. That's the kind of the Abathur coming into play, right? The traditional 1-4 is not something Dignitas can really rely on. So they're just looking to maybe not get sieged upon. It's just absolutely crucial that they don't get that heavy poke on the turrets early game. Abathur's weakest points are in the early aspect because he has almost 0 defense for his front gates.
Yeah, Abathur also starting off with that extra range on his spike burst, the pressurized glands. So very much going to be throwing that onto Sonya throughout the game, and that is scary. It was scary when it was on Inadan, it's scary when it's on Sonya, and it's just been consistently good.
Absolutely, and here we go. The Immortals are going to be spawning again. I think the rotations are going to be crucial on the side of Dignitas. mYi is already getting a pretty good positional advantage, but it's not going to be too much to gain an advantage. They're guessing here. They are going to be, all right, so in position, both teams being a little bit even. I love this from Dig. Again, they're being aggressive. This is what they need in their comp to have success.
Yeah, and Abathur still soaking this while staying safe. Actually, he's just behind the wall due to the fact that the lane was pushed up. But now almost completely even. 91 health in it between these two Immortals. And now we're seeing Dignitas, like you said, playing very aggressively here. They're currently in the defensive position on their Immortal, which is still very far forward. They need to be careful.
This is one of the situations where they're trying to delay as long as they possibly can so that Abathur can gain some value. But there's the mobility. Falstad and Thrall separating here. I personally feel like Dignitas needs to pull somebody back and get in the Immortals. Again, they can't risk these early shields. They can give up all these early Immortals as long as they don't have too many shields. Their composition will have a huge spike in the later half of the game. Here you see aggressive rotation on their half, zoning, and now full committing, and they walk away with a win here. Really great aggressive teamwork on Dig's side.
Yeah, with the mYi, they did regroup up on that Immortal just to get the shield down as much as they could so that they wouldn't have to deal with it as much. But like you said, Dignitas, they don't have to do too much as they are getting an XP advantage. Mine's actually walking out a little bit ahead because of the whole Falstad Thrall split they did, which was really nice to play against. But this Immortal may be able to make a... Sorry, this Punisher... Yeah, Immortal will be able to make a bit of that back.
Yeah, and they're going to make the rotation here. They decide to send a 4-man top, even though the shields are extremely low here. mYi is actually not going to have a... There they go, getting a little bit more of a proper response. I feel like Dignitas does a little bit of a misplay on their half. They aren't capitalizing as much as they could. Because that Immortal didn't have enough shields, they aren't going to gain anything here. And the 2-man defense, mYi, almost perfect rotations here.
Yeah, they're able to take down this Immortal super quickly. And Dignitas, like you said, only just get a single tower for that. Not really a good move. Not really a good play here.
Yeah, it was like, normally that's actually a really good power play when you have the Immortal shields to be at that 50-70% mark, right? He's going to get the front wall in his own, so you decide, okay, guess what? I'm going to split in the other lane, get another front wall. But they ended up deciding not to go with that route and then ended up only capitalizing one lane. Now they are backing out, getting the Shaman camp really early here, so it won't be able to be timed here. So they definitely getting a different approach here with the Abathur. Again, a unique pick, so adaptability with their strategy is already coming into play 4 minutes into the game.
Yeah, both teams getting a mercenary camp, but like you said, that Shaman camp, very scary, very early on, especially now that we see Dignitas are all down here ready to protect it. But it is leaving Abathur up in top lane to deal with that Khazra camp basically on his own, while as Darkmock just pushing up the lane so that Snitch would have a bit of a harder time with that.
I can definitely say that I feel like you can already see from Dignitas that their rotations are very heavy and as a team. And I think as the game goes on farther and farther, that it's going to give them more and more of an advantage. When it so do the zoning in the early Immortal and then completely hard committing to theirs. There you see them taking the camp, taking out a front wall for free. It just feels like they're 5 seconds ahead of mYi, and that might be scary as the game goes on.
Yeah, and we're going to have a quick look at some of the talents here, especially seeing as Dignitas are hitting their 7s. But before we look at those, some of the ones on mYi, we see Envenom coming in on Thrall. Not the most common of talents, but see it now and again, and we see the Sledgehammer on that Muradin. He wants that siege damage.
Yeah, it's going to gain him a little bit of value there, but I do like the choice to go with Envenom. I feel like the early skirmishing is going to be relevant. Again, I don't feel like their team does too well in the later half of the game. So getting that Envenom to try and spike in the early half, and now again, both teams trading even. Dignitas, again, exactly what they need to walk away and get to the late game on an even footing here is be aggressive, get the Immortal, don't let it have too much shields.
And once again, the Immortals almost completely even on health. These teams just racing so much. But we do see Dignitas split off a bit. They want to clear this wave, this Shaman camp. Really, really strong. We see Wubby and Bakery moving in, though, to at least try and slow down mYi because, like we said, they split off. So they need to at least pressure them, maybe try and get a kill with the Immortal stun. But Sonya only just arriving.
Yeah, and we need to make sure that mYi doesn't full commit to the soak a little bit too much here. They're in a winning position. They don't need to force anything. Definitely on the side of Dignitas, they are the ones that have to react to them. So as long as mYi doesn't commit to soak too heavily here, they're going to be able to win this Immortal. It's not going to have that much of an advantage, but so far they're doing pretty well in these early phases. I am disappointed that they haven't been able to get a little bit more of a lead against an Abathur-style comp this early, but it's definitely still a place where they can capitalize.
Yeah, this is very true. In goes JPL. He does get rooted, taking a bit of damage. The Envenom is dropped, but he's still tanked for now. We're seeing Bakery with all the heals, but JPL is taken down. And that is going to be first blood in this game. mYi from above trying to get that orb off, but not able to land it. And we will see the Immortal go over to mYi.
Yeah, and the shields now, that's kind of a little bit what I was talking about. So they're in a situation where they decide to choose the fight where I feel like unless they have a perfect engage, don't necessarily have the early game. Now, the Immortal, because they decide to be on the passive side of things and lose the fight, going to be at half shields, going to get a large amount of siege on the side of mYi, and that's kind of that early game lead I was talking about. It might be enough to spike them into a situation where Abathur becomes like almost an irrelevant pick.
Yep, and they're going to be hard pushing with this Immortal. Falstad, the only person up in top lane, soaking that XP once again. JPL going aggressive. We're seeing Dignitas trying to pick anyone off here. They got some good body blocks on Splendor, but they're pushing out too far. They don't want to take that risk. Nice shot by Greymane, doing a lot of damage, and Dignitas having to pull back to defend that Immortal. But mYi, they realize they're in a decent position and push really aggressively, and they will easily get the fort.
Yeah, they have 10 advantage here. They're honest going to they're going to take the key front wall. They're in a situation where Dignitas cannot react to them. Look at that max value from that store belt talent from Blumby. Really well done there. Abathur is trying to get a little bit of soak in the upper half of the map, but until Dig gets 10, mYi is the one who's dictating the pace of this game. They're going to get a key front wall here and then probably rotate up and try and take a fight. If they overcommit to that, though, they might be in a situation where they possibly can risk their lead.
Yeah, they need to be very, very careful here. We see HotS still pushing this up, getting XP. Abathur going to be symbioting, but not going to take the risk of moving his body any further forward. In comes Dignitas with the rotation. Like you said, they want to try and get someone. Nurok not in the fight yet because he's slowed by the Abathur mind, but we do see mYi back off. They're not going to get themselves caught.
All right, and Sanctification is going to be the choice here on the side of Tyrael. So level lead already in the favor of mYi. A lot of that I feel like comes down to the aggression that I've been harping on the entire time. Where Dignitas decides to go on the Immortals, defense is not their friend when it comes to this game. Even though they do have the weaker comp, just kill the Immortal, get the shields as low as they can, and now a level behind. If this continues for the next phase, which now that they've hit 10 is not going to be, their team fighting is definitely a lot closer than it was pre-10. But at the same time, it's just one of those things that if they end up making the same mistake during the second phase and don't win it, I don't know if they have the composition to get a win.
Yeah, even if they do just raise the Immortal and lose it, they still have the damage and the aggression potential to at least take the Immortal down to a really easy to kill spot, so they would be able to deal with that.
Yeah.
Seeing Muradin currently going for those Shamans, going to be taking them down, getting ready to push. But Dignitas moving out as 4 into the jungle, and like we said, we have the Abathur Ultimate Evolution prepared, but they don't know where mYi are. They don't want to get caught off, but seeing as they don't have the vision of them, instead, just going to push aggressively into this fort.
And this is already using Barrel to get the gust here.
Yeah, and JPL trying to get out of there. There's the Sanctification. They turn it around. Disintegrate, doing a fair amount of damage to Blumby, but he pops Avatar, keeping himself alive. And Dignitas in full retreat. There's the healing ward. It's not destroyed, and JPL gets a decent amount of health. They're trying to turn it around, but Snitch will die on that clone there, so he'll pop back down to the bottom lane. Not in soak range, but Dignitas not able to get as much as they hoped for out of that.
Honestly, mYi gave them more than I think they needed to too. Like that, they decided to move forward and try and take that fight, even though that the clone is still up and they burn Sanctification. 2 ults down, take the reset, join the fight later on and be able to get the win there. So mYi may be giving them a little more than they should. They aren't going to be hitting the 13 talent quite yet. Look at that value there from Blumby as well when it comes to the Stormbolt talent there at level 4. Really well done, getting a max value, but now the race of 13 is on and mYi is just barely winning it.
Yeah, they're holding it as best as they can with Falstad in the bottom lane, whereas Abathur really relying on his symbiotes. It looks like we may see top 4 go down to that Shaman camp. It's going to drop very low for Abathur.
And that will be 13. If that goes down, it'll be very, very close to 13 to where that talent here might be what it takes for mYi to get a big lead.
Dignitas finally going aggressive onto the other Immortal. They are quite a bit behind this time because they started a bit later, and like you said, that huge efficiency from that Muradin talent. For's still going, it's still alive. Abathur is doing everything he can to protect that, but he needs to be with his team right now. JPL goes in, Disintegrate, doing so much damage. Sanctification, really nice here. It stops 2 of the Mighty Gust targets being pushed away, but Dignitas currently pushing as 3 into 5 here, and we are going to see mYi disengage, but that gives Dignitas a chance to at least aggro onto that Immortal and get a lot more of that shield down.
Honestly, that was really good patience on the side of Dark Monk there, not using the Sunder there. being very patient, trying to take a team fight where his team can actually get a win, rather than just kind of throwing it out and having it on cooldown now. So that was actually very impressive patience on his half, and whether or not he's going to be able to abuse it here during this kind of re-engage is going to be crucial. They are going to wait out the 13 tier. It's going to be interesting. Is Dignitas going to try and force this fight, even though they're down a talent tier?
HotS arriving in time. Looks like they may try a bit, but JPL taking a lot of damage. Ancestral is popped. Disintegrate doing a fair amount of damage. Once again, Dignitas are back on that just poking style, trying to get that Immortal down as low as possible. Meantime, HotS and Nurok is going to be able to take this down very quickly, and that will give the Immortal over to mYi, unless Dignitas can pull something very impressive here and get a huge amount of burst off.
Yeah, and this is a situation where Dignitas needs to try and force that fight. At the same time, they just got Sanctification off of cooldown there as well, so that would have been a choice where they might have been able to take a team fight. They aren't down enough to really for the Abathur to be a struggle. They are going to be able to still gain advantage out of him, but now on the upper half of the map, this team fight is going to be kind of what sets the tone for the rest of the game. If mYi gets a win here with their engage, it might lead to a keep, honestly.
Yeah, there's a very good chance of that. We are seeing them push out the minion wave so that they can join up with their minion wave as well, so they can get the maximum amount of aggression out of this. Dignitas all grouped up. The fort is screwed in one hit. Nothing they can do about that. Dignitas holding at their second wall for now, waiting for the engage to arrive at them.
And yeah, they're just sieging up here, trying to get as much as they can. Greymaine's not at that 16 talent tier spike that he's going to need to be able to get. Abathur also not hitting the split pushing kind of spike that he's going to be able to do on the bottom half of the map. So the siege up here, honestly, a large, like, impressive amount of damage coming in. I didn't think they had the siege until they had 16 here, but they're going in, and the sanctification coming out.
Yeah, Sanctification has come out. In comes the orb, gets a very good hit on pretty much all the heroes, doing a lot of damage, and that forces mYi back. Dignitas take the Immortal, but lose the keep, and that is devastating. However, they're now trying to give chase. They want to get something out of this. In goes Nurok into Worgen form, onto Snitch, but it looks like they're just going to leave Snitch behind and try and get everyone else out of there, because the clone would not have had enough time left on it.
That was huge, honestly, for mYi. That was exactly what they needed here. They now just have enough of a lead to be able to kind of fight back with that split sieging, split soaking that Abathur can provide in the later half of the game. They're on the race to 16, leading by 2 complete levels. I honestly wouldn't be surprised with the amount of siege potential that they have on this style of composition and the amount of poke. I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to abuse their 16 on the bottom half of the map and start whittling down at that keep, right? As best as they possibly can.
Yeah, there's a very good chance that they want to try and push that in. For now, they do have mercenaries that they have to go through, but mYi have mercenaries pushing in the top lane as well, which Dignitas will be dealing with. Dignitas staying together very much, whereas mYi just going for hard pushing in the bottom lane, while Dignitas, they can see they're busy in the top lane.
Yeah, I really want mYi to be aggressive here with the 16 talents here. I think if they act a little bit too patiently, the Immortal's going to be spawning long enough that Abathur will be able to soak and get his team most likely 16 if they play at that kind of passive defense game that we've been seeing them look for this entire time. So if they are kind of more aggressive here, abusing the 16 as best as they possibly can, I feel like this is going to be honestly their game. They are in a situation where this is going to lead to another keep if they are efficient with their timing here. And that next second keep, all it takes is 1 to 2 picks, which honestly, we're yet to see Dignitas win a single team fight. So just holding that true, if that keeps up this pattern, they're going to be able to possibly walk away with a win right here, 14 minutes in.
Very true, and they have a 2-level advantage right now, and a talent advantage. They have their 16s with the Stone Form, Hammer Time, Circle of Life, Tempest Fury, and the Concentrate Blast. We're once again going to be seeing the race.
Yeah, and what they need to be doing during the second phase is they can't go blow for blow. They won't be able to get... They have 16 tier advantage, right? They need to force Dignitas to respond to them. Send 2 people back in on the Punisher's zone with the rest of them, right? Here we go. We do see Falstad's getting the damage there. Somebody's going to zone. There we go. Greymane and Thrall are going to zone in the upper half. Really well done on mYi's side.
Disintegrate is used though, trying to work down Darkmock, but Bloomby coming in, being a great zoning force for mYi here, just taking so much control.
Yeah, no, and actually Dig is going to back out 100% there, so the commit here is going to happen on the side of mYi, and Abathur is barely going to be able to close into 16 tier. You're going to look to see Dignitas is going to try and force the fight away from the Immortal when they do get the 16 tier talent, or they're going to give up, they might even give up the keep, honestly, and try and take the fight near the core, but how well mYi understands their advantage, and if they bite off a little bit too much here, they might be risking their lead.
Yeah, they have to be so careful. This Immortal arriving still quite a while back, so mYi currently just focusing. Let's Disintegrate, trying to clear the minion wave and those Kazaras. Bloomby, super aggressive, takes a bit of damage, but getting it healed by Splendor, and the Immortal has now arrived. There's the clone from Snitch, so they're going to want to make a play sooner rather than later.
Oh, the Gus coming out. They want that. So this isn't going to be a tool that they're going to have for the core here. They just hit 16 tier. Here they go. They're trying to force the fight. Saint coming out really early, though.
The Orc being blocked off, but they turn around to try and fight. Blumby instead snitch on the clone, getting out of there. Blumby just so taken. There's the Sundering doing so much. Ancestral goes down onto JPL, though he will stay alive. He's doing so much damage. He finds Hazards, he gets the kill, and he's going to try and chase down the rest. Blumby was still trying to chase back, but the Immortals on the core.
Yeah, and they're looking to get in the core here. They don't have very many zoning tools left, but I don't think it's going to matter, honestly. As long as they stay on the core and they ignore everything else at this point, they don't have the tools to deal with it. That's going to be GG. mYi gets the lead that they need and walks in with a lead here against what was convincing round one from Team Dignitas.
Wow, that is not what a lot of us expected here, but mYi absolutely well played there and an incredible fight. And finally, where Dignitas looked like they could win a fight, but Mortal goes straight to the core and they just follow it.
I think a lot of that came down to the decision-making that they made on those first few Immortals. I touched up on it beforehand. They decided to go with that passive route. All it took was them deciding to go on that defensive, right? They're sitting down trying to defend off their Immortal. They lost that fight one time after the second phase, and since then they were never able to take a team fight where they stood a chance. They have to, if you're going to pick the Abathur on this map, especially into a false head who won't let you abuse your soak, you must go even until at least 13 tier, and they risked it, and the mYi walks away with a win because of it.
Yeah, and by the point they actually started going aggressive again, like I said, and stopped doing the defense, they were too far behind already, and Muradin was just able to zone them out. Greymane and Falstad were able to just, Greymane and Frostway were able to just hold them at the line, and that just made it too difficult for Dignitas to push in and get anything done. And also, big call out to Falstad there, who was able to get 11,000 experience compared to Abathur's 13. He was a big hero in terms of keeping mYi ahead in that game.
Absolutely, I definitely agree with you there, but we're going to see what our analyst desk has to say about that last match here.
All right, thank you very much, boys. As we go on now to our